Coming up on Network Africa. South African woman convicted of kidnapping her daughter, Joshua Smith. The Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda reached preliminary agreement after ceasefire talks in Doha and slumped. The United Nations says hundreds of people killed in the last week alone in North Darfur, Sudan. Hello and welcome to the program today. Thank you for joining us for the last episode of the week. I'm Lido Olayande. The mother of a South African girl who disappeared age 6 more than a year ago has been convicted of kidnapping and trafficking her daughter. Kelly Smith, her boyfriend Jackie Napolis and their friend Stevino Van Ryn were arrested after Smith's daughter Jocelyn went missing from outside their home in Saldanha Bay near Cape Town in February 2024. Police and Ryan were also found guilty on Friday of kidnapping and trafficking Jocelyn. All three had previously pleaded not guilty to these charges. Well, Jocelyn Smith's disappearance sent shockwaves across South Africa, and despite a highly publicized search for her, she is yet to be found. South African workers celebrated May Day with fanfare and hundreds of people dancing and cheering as local performers entertained attendees of the event marking workers' rights and trade unions. During the event, South African Labour Minister criticized U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs in Cape Town's May Day festivities on Thursday. COSATU Secretary General Soli Filo also asserted that discussions should be held on the budget for service delivery people and the unemployment rate in the country. Labor Day is an annual holiday that celebrates the labor movement and its achievements. In most countries, the celebrations are traditionally held on May the 1st.
The extreme rights are on the ascent in the US and in many countries, and among their first action are to attack workers. The manifestation itself is on the tariffs, on wars that are tariff wars that will affect workers in the market through bullying and slashing of public sector jobs. We are living through a technology revolution, and while technology can bring enormous benefits,
we want a budget that talks about service delivery to the people of South Africa. We want a budget that talks about the unemployment rate in this country.
We don't support it, and we are happy that the president is using his diplomatic approach to engage with President Trump. Hence now, just recently appointed an envoy who we know that is also got teams that will be going to see President Trump to engage. We are not supporting it at all.
Joining us now for more on Jocelyn Smith's mother's conviction and also May Day celebrations is our correspondent in South Africa, Innocent Samosa. Hello, Innocent. Happy May Day to you.
Happy May Day to you, colleague, and our workers around the world.
Well, let's begin with the sad situation on the case of Jocelyn Smith. I mean, we have been on this story for a while, and now it seems to have come to an end today. How did court proceedings play out?
Yeah, indeed, colleague. The National Prosecuting Authority has commended the work of the prosecutors and investigators in the Jocelyn Smith case. following the judgment, of course, that was handed down earlier today. As you rightly indicated, the child disappeared 6 years ago, and of course, Judge Nathan Erasmus found Jocelyn's mother, as you rightly indicated in the intro. Amongst the people that were in there, of course, is Jacqueline Apollis, and of course, the friend Stefano van Rijn. They were found guilty, of course, of kidnapping and human trafficking in connection with the disappearance of the girl. As I've indicated, this, of course, the 6-year-old went missing, of course, from her home in Meldepos. Back in February, if my memory serves me well, last year, and tragically, she has not been found since till today. But of course, the Western Cape Director of Public Prosecutions, that is Nicolette Bell, called the judgment. In fact, she called this judgment, this ruling, a remarkable day. In fact, she praised the prosecution team for their dedication to this case, and of course, before delivering his verdict, Judge Erasmus carefully walked through the evidence presented during, nearly 2 months, colleague, of court proceedings in, Saldanha. This, of course, it's in the Western Cape. He thanked everyone involved in helping bring justice to the community, saying that this is not just justice for the community, but also for Jocelyn. But you're looking at the case and looking at the people that attended this case, it does seem as though this case was really big. Among those present in the courtroom was the Western Cape Police Commissioner, that is General Tembisile Patekile. This goes to show that indeed it was a big, case, and it does seem as though this time around the wheels of justice, colleague, didn't really take time to turn.
Yes, Innocent, and we have 3 accused: Kelly Smith, that's Jocelyn Smith's mother, a boyfriend, and a friend. But what were their individual, sentences?
So the accused are set to appear in the Western Cape High Court in Cape Town next week for sentencing procedures to commence. Now, colleague, in South Africa, the sentences of kidnapping, killing, murder are serious and can, of course, result in long-term imprisonment, depending on the circumstances of the crime. But if both kidnapping and murder are committed, the sentences can also run, consecutively, meaning that a person could face an imprisonment of up to 30 years plus, or depending on how the court sentences on the structure of the sentence and the specific facts of the case. But of course, we do know that they are back in court next week. For now, they're being kept in custody, colleague.
All right, and Jocelyn Smith is still missing, yet to be found. Are there any leads? Is the police still, trying to find her in spite of this conviction?
Well, at this point in time, colleague, unfortunately, there are no leads. With the evidence that we had in court, it does seem as though she might not still be alive, because we're told that she was sold to a sangoma. This is traditional, known as sangoma. These are traditional healers, simply because she had blue eyes and she looked like an albino. She was fair in color, and there's a narrative that those kind of people, play a huge role in terms of when people are doing rituals. For an example, if people want to, be rich, or rather, want to be feared in a society. So it really remains to be seen whether or not she's still alive. But the evidence that we're hearing, it does seem as though she is not alive. But we will hear from the investigation team as they are really continuing with the investigations. But at this point in time, I can tell you now that there are no leads as to whether she's still alive or not, colleague.
Yeah, that's quite unfortunate. But to more cheery news, May Day celebrations. How did the events? How did it go across the country? And South African workers, what are they looking for? Because it's a day to bring to light the significance of the workers in each country.
Yeah, indeed, colleague. But here in South Africa, it was funny because it's taking place in an era of the government of national unity, whereby the workers that are affiliated with the African National Congress are really not understanding the African National Congress, the fact that they're in bed with the Democratic Alliance. In fact, one of the leaders of the South African Communist Party, that is Solima Paila, in fact, when he stood to the podium, he said, "Down with the GNU, down," in front of President Cyril Ramaphosa. And that just goes to show, colleague, that the ANC finds itself in a very difficult position this time around, because the workers are not really backing the African National Congress, in that we heard that the likes of South African Communist Party, the likes of COSATU, they are still yet to decide whether or not they will support the ANC in the upcoming election. So it was May Day, of course, there were celebrations, but at the center of that is that bone of contention, whereby there's the squabbles, political infighting between the African National Congress and its tripartite alliance. So it is interesting to see whether or not the ANC, the South African Communist Party, COSATU, will now resolve all the differences and say, look, the GNU seems to be working for now. Can't we compromise and work together? But that remains to be seen, colleague.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Innocent Samosa, our correspondent in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Thank you so much to be alongside you, colleague.
Away from southern Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda are expected to submit a draft agreement to end the war in Congo's eastern region. This comes after various meetings between delegations from Kinshasa and Kigali in Doha, Qatar, to iron out the differences between both countries. The agreement would be in line with a declaration of principles that was signed in Washington, D.C. a week ago. On Wednesday, the U.S. President's Africa envoy, Massad Boulos, joined Congolese, Rwandan, Togolese, and French representatives at the talks in Doha. The draft deal is expected to cover issues such as territorial sovereignty, the fight against armed groups, the mineral trade, refugees, and also the role of international forces, but particularly the UN's MONUSCO. Rwandan-backed rebels took control of 2 provincial capitals in eastern Congo earlier this year, forcing Kinshasa to soften its stance on dialogue with the M23 rebel group. In the last week alone, the confirmed number of civilians killed in northern Darfur is at least 542. And this is according to UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric while briefing reporters on the situation in Sudan. Mr. Dujarric says the UN Human Rights Office is particularly concerned about reports of extrajudicial executions in Khartoum state, prompting the UN Rights Chief, Volker Turk, to personally alert both leaders of the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, and the Sudanese Armed Forces to the catastrophic human rights consequences of the war.
Turning to another horrendous humanitarian situation, that is Sudan, we continue to get very disturbing reports out of that country, and it's mainly in North Darfur State. Our humanitarian colleagues tell us that in the last week alone, the confirmed number of civilians killed in North Darfur was at least 542. The actual death toll is, of course, likely to be much higher. Our colleagues warn. Reports of extrajudicial executions in Khartoum state are also extremely disturbing. Our human rights chief, Volker Turk, said he had personally alerted both leaders of the Rapid Support Forces and the Sudanese Armed Forces of the catastrophic human rights consequences of this war. You will have seen a statement he issued this morning in which he said it is well past the time for the conflict to stop. On the continued efforts of the Secretary General's personal envoy, Ramtam Lamamra, I can tell you that this week he was in Cairo, where he discussed with officials there, including the Egyptian foreign minister, the recent developments in Sudan and the ongoing efforts to stop the war. They shared the views that an inclusive Sudanese-led political path is needed to restore peace in the country, preserving the unity of Sudan, its sovereignty, and its territorial integrity. Separately, he exchanged views with Ahmed Abul Gheit, the Secretary General of the League of Arab States, on coordinating efforts between the UN, the Arab League, and concerned multilateral organizations to advance peace endeavors in Sudan. Earlier this week, Mr. Lamamra was in Port Sudan and in Addis Ababa, where he continued his engagements with various stakeholders.
Still to come on the program. Lagos State partners with the UN Children's Agency UNICEF towards achieving vaccination for all children. Please join us again. Welcome back to the program. Uganda's military chief is sparking public anger in the country after he confirmed the detention of an opposition leader's bodyguard who has been missing for 5 days. Edward Sebufu, also known as Eddie Mutwe, was reportedly picked up on Sunday by unidentified individuals in both civilian clothes and military fatigues in the central town of Kiwango. In a series of social media posts, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, who's also the son of Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni, said Eddie Mutwe was in his basement, attaching the bodyguard's photo with a clean-shaven head. He also suggested that Mr. Sebufu had been disciplined, and this has raised fears about his safety. Ugandans have been calling for his release using the hashtag #FreeEddieMutwe to demand Mr. Sebufu's release and also condemn his detention. UN top official to Somalia, James Swan, continues his visit in the country, visiting Baidoa State this time around to discuss issues and the role of dialogue for tackling national priorities in Somalia. In the southwest states, Mr. Swan covered a range of local topics with the federal member states' leadership, in addition to reiterating the need for discussion on various national issues that the country is facing. The UN Special Representative made the comments at a joint press encounter with Southwest States President Abdiaziz Hassan Mohammed after meeting with him and members of his administration at the federal member states' State House.
I underscored the importance of unity and inclusive dialogue among Somalia's political and community leaders. And I reiterated the position of Somalia's international partners. We welcome the initiative announced by President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud in his Eid al-Fitr message to arrange a platform that brings together the full range of Somali voices to advance the country's state-building priorities and respond effectively to the al-Shabaab threat. In that regard, I recalled the importance of an open political environment to permit the successful conduct of elections at all levels. In collaboration with humanitarian partners, the United Nations is working hand in hand with the Southwest state authorities to address these urgent needs. And we want to give priority to those who most need assistance. We also, of course, want to link the humanitarian response to this state's longer-term development needs.
Back here in Nigeria, the Lagos State Traffic Management Authority, LASTMA, has officially unveiled an emblem to mark the agency's 25th anniversary. Special Advisor to the Lagos State Governor on Transportation, Mr. Shola Giwa, describes the anniversary as a moment for reflection, rededication and visioning. While noting that LASTMA has been at the front line of order, discipline and safety on the roads, Mr. Giwa adds that the body has evolved from traffic management to an incident management agency. For the General Manager of LASTMA, Mr. Olalekan Bakare Oki, The emblem transcends its aesthetic representation and outlook.
This 25th anniversary is not just a celebration, it is a moment for reflection, rededication, and visioning. It gives us the opportunity to assess how far we have come, recognize the men and women who wear the LASMA uniform with dignity, and unveil our roadmap for a smarter, technology-driven, citizen-centric traffic management future in Lagos. By the way, the date we have chosen is from 15th of July to 17th of July. We'll be having a traffic conference, a 3-day traffic conference at the Hotel and Suites. So the theme of this celebration is LASMA at 25, enhancing traffic efficiency and safety in Lagos State roads, challenges, opportunities, and innovations. Through a lineup of commemorative activities, including the Traffic Summit, Community Outreach Program, Staff Recognition Program, ceremony, strategic dialogues, we aim to reinforce LASMA's new values of professionalism, integrity, and service excellence.
The emblem we unveil today transcends into representation and outlook. It encapsulates the enduring spirit of our institution, the hurdles we have surmounted, the laurel we have earned, and the unrelenting passion demonstrated by every officer who has adorned the LASMA uniform with honor and distinction. It stands as an emblematic enigma, calling us to reaffirm our collective duty to fortify and expand the legacy meticulously built over the past 25 years.
Industry leaders, policymakers, and government officials gathered for the South Africa-Nigeria Private Sector Engagement Session hosted by the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition in partnership with MTN Group. The session underscored the need to strengthen economic cooperation between South Africa and Nigeria, two of Africa's largest and most influential economies, for the success of the African continent. It also brought together South African companies already operating in Nigeria, along with those exploring new business opportunities in the West African region.
Engagement follows a commitment during the 11th session of the Nigeria-South Africa Bi-National Commission (BNC) held in South Africa in December 2024. At that session, both parties agreed to convene the inaugural meeting of the Joint Ministerial Advisory Council on Trade, Industry and Investment during the 2025-2026 financial year. The Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Mr. Pakstow, who led the engagement, says that the session marks an important milestone in the broader vision of a more integrated and competitive African economy. CEO of Nigeria-South Africa Business Chamber, Diana Games, says this is a step in the right direction for industrialization in the continent.
Absolutely. I think that, I don't think it's just a case of the two biggest economies. I think all African countries need to be talking more to each other and finding out how can we replace, imports, for example, of food and things that are coming from other parts of the world. I mean, that's a good start. And I like the suggestion someone made of having priority areas. Let's identify a few and then drive those forward so we can just talk about a success of some sort in driving, especially in getting Nigerian companies into South Africa.
Absolutely a step in the right direction. I think if we play our cards well, we'll be able to establish that digital forum that will allow even startups and SMMEs to trade with each other in a safe space where money can be safe, where trade can be safe, and we have a place for economies to grow together.
But challenges like visa accessibility remain a hurdle for entrepreneurs hoping to fully tap into cross-border opportunities.
Nigeria and South Africa also needs to resolve this issue ASAP to enable business to trade. I mean, to get a visa to go to Nigeria, it's going to take you almost about 3 weeks to get the visa, and then they only give you a 3-month visa, single entry. and it costs you arms and legs. Same also with Nigerian business coming to South Africa. They're facing the same challenges. Yet today's technology enables everybody to know exactly who's trading or who's the person. So let's focus on the business people.
Delegate says this engagement marks a key step towards deepening regional cooperation. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samos, Channels Television News.
And finally on the program, in commemoration of the World Immunization Week, wife of the Lagos State Governor Dr. Ibijoke Sanwo-Olu has flagged off the National Immunization Plus Days in Lagos State, reaffirming the state government's commitment to protecting every child against polio and other vaccine-preventable diseases. At the ceremony that held in Alausa Ikeja, Mrs. Sanwo-Olu called on parents, caregivers and community stakeholders to actively support the forthcoming immunization campaign that's to begin from Saturday, May 3rd to Tuesday, May 6th, 2025, and ensure that their children receive the free oral polio vaccine to be able to reduce preventable diseases. And that's it on the program for today and for the week. Thank you for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde. Have a lovely weekend.